So I'm going to present to you a couple of things. How can you build a story? How can you form a narrative for your case studies? Now this is valid for if you already have a case study and you want to elevate it, or if you are creating a case study, right? So
Manav, please volume.
this is good for both, right? Uh, I'm going to be going through the deck. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and at the end, uh, we can start. We can go through those questions, and I'll answer your questions. ठीक है?
Yeah.
Uh, all right. So I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yeah.
Sure. Cool. Okay. So just before we start, I have a question, and you can write your answers or you can unmute yourself and say what this is. Like, if you can see something on the screen, right? What do you think this is? Anyone? Take a guess. It's related to a movie. It's related to a very popular movie featuring
Shawshank Redemption,
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Shutter Island,
Sorry?
Shutter Island.
No, no, not Shutter Island.
Leonardo DiCaprio in a heist movie. Okay. Is it Inception?
Yeah, this is Inception. Yeah. So this is the plot graph of Inception. So this is the graph that Nolan made before he even decided to go into scripting of the movie and everything else. Right.
Okay.
So this is called a plot graph. Basically, it tells you on a high level what is going to happen, right? What's the plot going to be like, right?
Okay.
And also what are some of the characters, how are the characters going to be working along with the plot, right?
Hmm.
Similarly, again, this is again one more plot diagram, right? Uh, Take a guess. This is his popularly very subjectively least popular movie.
Okay. Is it Hollywood?
This is Hollywood only.
Okay. House, city, cross town.
Meter.
Baby Day Out.
No, no, no. It's by Nolan only,
Okay.
and it's a fairly recent movie.
Then it is that movie, right? The time reverse one. Tenet.
Oppenheimer.
Tenant, yeah, it's
Tenet.
the plot graph of Tenant, right? So the reason I showed you these two graphs is because at the end, when you are going to create your own stories, right? This is one of the tools that you can use to ideate on how can you write a story, right? What are the characters
Okay.
in the story, right? And based on this high
Okay.
level diagram, you can go deep down in details of what do you want to add, where do you want to elaborate on, right? Cool. Now, before
No
we
one can say this is a plot of a story of a movie.
Yeah, it's conceptual, right? Right.
Yeah.
That's where concepts come. Cool. Uh, Now before we start, I want every one of you to either write or think one, two, three, any number of strong design skills that you individually have, right? And by strong design skills, it could be, I'm good at thinking, I'm good at strategy, I'm good at visual design, I'm good at motion, I'm good at all a couple of two, three things, right? And maybe write down in the comment section, right? What do you think is your strong design skill? And Khyati, if you can just speak out for what people are writing because I can't see the screen right
Okay,
now.
sure.
Come on,
Rishabh,
guys.
3D design,
Sorry.
3D design,
Okay.
visual design prototyping,
Nice, nice.
micro interaction, user research,
Got it.
direction
Nice.
design, empathy, prototyping. Does humor count?
Yeah, humor also counts. Yes, yes, it does count.
Typography, color combination, visual design.
Okay, got it, got it. Cool. So just remember that these are some of the skills individually जो जो भी आपने लिखा है. These are the skills that will help each of you individually build your stories, right, and present it in a unique way that's unique to you, because these are the set of skills that are strongest to you, right? Cool. So let's get to the topic of building narratives for your portfolio. So एक story क्या होती है यार? Story is basically, as mentioned on screen, it's a journey of events that leads a character into to an outcome or goal, right? And I have highlighted journey, events, characters, outcome or goal, right? Now there is a graphic on the screen which is similar to the graph that you just saw, right? Right, it's a plot graph, right? And it basically have curves, it has inclinations, and it has declinations, right? What this curve means is how invested emotionally or physically or mentally a person or a person who's seeing the story or listening to the story is involved, right? And at what stage certain events occur, right? So उससे पहले, before I get into how do you construct a story, I just want to ask, like, why do you think storytelling is needed, right? Why suddenly everyone is asking ki designers need to have good storytelling? Earlier it was empathy, before then it became product thinking, now people are saying you need to have storytelling. Why do you think that is?
Mm,
Story is the easiest way to make anybody to understand things. So
Okay.
because we can remember stories.
Okay.
One more reason I think is like the case study format people are using these days is like common structure that they are following, and nobody like the recruiters are not trying to read all the things, but they want to grasp those things in a short time span, and we want to make the recruiters engaged to that content. In that way, we can use storytelling.
Yeah, yeah. So all of you are right individually, right? So my point of view, which I have observed personally, is uh, one, obviously, uh, people don't want storytellers, right? Because storytelling is very subjective, and stories are also subjective. They essentially want people who are good communicators, who can communicate across the team, right? Top to bottom, left to right, right? Across teams and across stakeholders, right? If you can do that, then essentially you are communicating easily with people at any level, right?
Mm,
Second thing is, when you join a team, right? Most of the times, what you are doing is you are presenting ideas, right? You are presenting explorations, and when you present 50 variations of one thing, right, with slight changes, it can get boring, right?
mm,
And meetings usually are boring. It's very difficult to hold people's attention, right? So storytelling just becomes one of those tools to hold anyone who's participating in the meeting, to hold their attention, right?
right.
Uh, right. And essentially these are the two few outcomes that teams are looking for, but they were not able to articulate it in a way, and they have found a vaguish word to communicate that, and that vague word has unfortunately become storytelling, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is because most of the things in design, uh, even structures for that matter, of case studies are objective, right? You can say that if you do these things in this structure, राइट द आउटकम्स आर मच मोर फेवरेबल, है ना? लोगों को समझ में आ जाएगा. बट स्टोरी टेलिंग हैज बिकेम दिस वेग वर्ड which no one knows, right? But now if there is an expectation, there has to be, someone who needs to meet that expectation, right? So that is why uh, storytelling has become like a buzzword, and now we designers have to learn storytelling as a new tool in our basket. So let's break down what a story is, right? Uh, a story has basically, on the core, three parts, right? It has a character, it has a plot, right? Combining these two becomes a structure, right? And a structure is held by a narrative, right? And after all that is done, a certain emotion is evoked, right? तो जब स्टोरी खत्म होती है, एक certain emotion निकल के आता है, right? And this is true for every story. right? uh, तो एक एक करके जाते हैं, right? What is a character, right? So a character is anything, anyone. It could be one character, it could be multiple characters, right? That interacts in this story. ठीक है, अब एक बार स्टोरी के लिए भूल जाते हैं, स्टोरी को आप अपने प्रोजेक्ट से रिप्लेस कर दो, राइट? तो each of you has done a project or is doing a project, right? Is building their case study or has built a case study. आपने जब काम किया था, राइट, तो आपके साथ कौन कौन इन्वॉल्व था, राइट? Think of all them as characters, right? Your PM can be a character, your users can be a character, you can be a character, right? Your CEO could be a character, right? All these people are characters of your project, right? Now, when you are building a story, right, you will have to think that is this story of a character or is this a story of a team, right? And what part each of those characters played in reaching to the end conclusion, ठीक है? So how to choose characters is a very different topic, right? I can answer that later on, but for now, the first thing that you probably should decide is listing down all the characters that has helped or helped you in uh, completing that project, right? And these are the certain kind of heroes. There is a protagonist, antagonist. There could be an anti-hero, could be a supporter, could be a mentor. There could be a villain also, right? So this is one. This is the first step, right? Uh, The second step is plot. Now, plot is a word which is very specific. It means a series of events that move the story in a certain way, right? So now, uh, in our project, there are many events that happen, right? We do, as you said, we do research, we do discussions, we do iterations, feedback. There are reviews. We even fight with our stakeholders, right? That's a conflict. That's another plot that happens, which is called conflict, right? Uh, so the second thing that you need to do is after identifying what all people were there in your project involved, what which of these events took place in your plot in your case study, right? And one thing that I want to point out here is you don't have to be disingenuous. मतलब आपने अगर research नहीं करी है, you don't have to force research or you don't have to reverse engineer a research just to come to a conclusion, right? If you don't have a research, it's okay, right? In fact, the less steps you have, right, the less plots you have, the better it is, because then you have a big canvas to take the story in any direction, right? So just collect all the plots that happened in your case study, right? Everything that is there, and इसका फायदा ये होता है अगर आपने if you have well documented all these things, right, in either in form of comments or if you maintain a notebook in which you do your iterations or take feedback, that is a good way if you do things on Notion. But wherever you do your documentation, uh, if you can pull everything out and place it on one place, right? You have a lot of plots, right? Which can help you identify, okay, what all things actually happen, right? Uh, After, as I said, right, plot and characters now built something called a structure, right? So structure क्या होता है? Now structure is sequence in which these plots and characters interact with each other, right? So I'll give you an example. I'm assuming that a lot of you have watched Friends, Big Bang Theory, all these TV series, right? If you remember, if मतलब अगर कोई भी एक एपिसोड उठा लो तो उसमें क्या होता है, the way that episode is formed is there is a main story that goes and then there are side stories of other characters that happens. They can join the main story or they will go on their own, right? And the episode will conclude on a core plot, right? So a structure is basically how you arrange the plot and characters and their interactions, right? Uh, some of the most common story structure is called a hero's journey, right? A hero's journey is very common, right? If you have watched any origin story of any superhero movie, right? Batman dekh lo, Batman Begins, right? Uh, you see Wonder Woman, you see Iron Man, you see Avengers. All of them are hero's journey, right? कि एक character था, they started their journey, they explored a path, they gained power, they defeated a antagonist, and then they returned back, right? So this is one structure. Second is called collaborative triumph. I think Avengers is a very good example of collaborative triumph, where people of different characters and plots combine together to form to achieve one central goal, right? Then there is something called hero's transformation, right? This can be similar to hero's journey, but this can be different, as in there is a character who's very, वो बहुत ही लालची है, right? But then somehow it's a journey of him being lalchi to him being very, donate बहुत करने लग गए, right? There are things called bad to worse, right? You started from a point which is bad, and then it ended to a point which is way worse, right? There is something called journey of discovery, which is you are just the entire plot, the entire structure of the story is how you are discovering things. So journey of discovery is a story structure that documentaries use, mostly, right? Then there is called Cinderella, right? Cinderella is a very interesting and complex structure, because Cinderella का plot क्या होता है, right? There is a girl who's at the lowest, right? Then a fairy comes, right? And वो it gives the girl good clothes, right? Vehicle, right? Makes her pretty, makes her look pretty, right? उनको प्रिंस के पार्टी में लेके जाती है, right? फिर वहां से डाउनफॉल होता है, टाइम ओवर होता है, डाउनफॉल होता है, देन शी कम्स डाउन टू वेयर शी स्टार्टेड, राइट? एंड देन धीरे धीरे प्रिंस उसके पास आता है, एंड देन दे गेट मैरिड. सो द होल स्ट्रक्चर इज धीरे धीरे करके आप एक टॉप पॉइंट पे आए, फिर आप एकदम से बॉटम पॉइंट पे आए, और फिर धीरे 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 करके दोबारा टॉप पॉइंट पे, राइट? सो if you have a complex project, right, Cinderella might be a good structure to explore, right? Then there is something called challenge action impact. I don't have an example of this at this point of time, but it's something. Maybe we can think of a story where someone challenged someone, right? And based on that challenge, there is some impact in the story, right? And these are some common structures, right? There are more structures, and if you just go on the internet and just Google storytelling structures, right, you will find a lot of the examples of story structures, right? uh, Next is building a narrative. Now once you have your character plot into a structure, you start deploying narrative on it. A narrative is basically the way you tell a story, right? So when you start a project, right, or when you present your case study, you can say, I built a feature, right? That is one way of saying. Second way of saying is, hey, I helped x people solve their y problems, right, which created z impact, right? So just see the difference between the two way you have presented a story, right? So narrative is basically how you present a story, right? Now unfortunately, narrative is something that you have to try, test, build, right, based on how you are thinking your story, sorry, how you are thinking your characters and plots are interacting in what structure, right? You have to iterate it continuously, till you find one that fits to a massy audience, wider audience, right? I know it's very generic at this point of time. I'll try to be more specific, right? Abhi, in few slides, right? uh, And last thing is, planting emotions or taking out emotions. Like, what do you want to convey when after you have presented this story, right? So you want to ideally feel delight, desire, surprise, trust, right? Conflict at is also a good emotion, right? But what you want to stay away from is boredom or apathy, right? Like whenever you are presenting your work to someone, they should not feel bored, right, or disconnected, from whatever you are presenting. Either it could be a problem statement or it could be your story, right? And the last thing is, supporting visuals in the story, right? Uh, Visuals become important for us designers. Visuals are usually anyways important, but it becomes even important for us designers is because when we are presenting a story, right? Or I'm presenting something like this. If you see, my screen is mostly empty, right? It does not have anything to hook you, right? But when you are presenting a case study, right, you want people to stay focused on the screen and not get distracted. That's one. Second is, in your work there could be some things that are easier if you present it in a visual way than if you just verbatimly speak it, right? So visuals then become important point of storytelling, right? So people usually use graphs, motion design, prototypes, all these things become a part of supporting visuals, right? And this is where your strong design skill comes in building a case study, right? uh, if you have strong motion design, you can use a lot of motion designs to make supporting visuals. And similar to, if you are good at prototyping, you can actually put prototypes on every screen, every slide, right, where you are presenting some specific knowledge about that particular prototype. Cool. Uh, before this, is there any question? Do we have any questions?
Not yet.
Okay. If guys, if you have any questions, or if you want me to clarify some things, anything that I have covered so far, or if you want me to repeat something else, please let me know.
Question. Hello,
Yes,
am I
Madam.
audible?
Yes, yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned story structure which said bad to worse. What does that
Yeah.
mean?
Shutter
Uh,
Island.
Bad to worse. Yeah. I mean, you can see, Shutter Island is a place where you start from bad and it end to worse. देखो, bad to worse एक ऐसा story telling tool है. I can give you a case study का example, right? Suppose a lot of time what we designers think is we only have to present जहाँ पे हमें success मिला है, right? If you see, you have rarely seen a case study जहाँ पे किसी डिजाइनर ने बोला है कि हमने ये प्रॉब्लम स्टार्ट किया सॉल्व करना, बट जब भी हम सॉल्व करते उसका आउटकम वर्स आता गया टू द पॉइंट कि हमने प्रॉब्लम ही ड्रॉप कर दी,
Yeah.
है ना? हमने कभी केस स्टडी नहीं देखी है, हम इंटरनली बात करते हैं, राइट? सो दिस इज वन ऑफ द एग्जांपल्स वेयर, जैसे अगर आपने कोई पेज का सीटीआर इंप्रूव करने की कोशिश करके रीडिजाइन किया, सीटीआर ड्रॉप हो गया, आपने वापस किया तो वो उस लेवल पे आया ही नहीं जिस लेवल पे पहले था, ठीक है? फिर आपने और एक्सपेरिमेंट्स किए, वो और बेकार होता गया होता गया होता गया, मतलब इट नेवर रीच टू अ प्लेस वेयर इट वाज देयर, राइट?
So
सो
how does this
दैट
kind of structure play out when you're making your case study? Matlab, do you actually recommend something like this?
आई विल आंसर दैट क्वेश्चन लेटर,
Okay,
but it's
sure.
a good question. So
Okay,
let's
sure.
not keep that. Any more questions?
Yeah.
Yep.
Is it good to present a bad to worse story if you are trying to get hired?
अरे वो वही तो मैं कह रहा हूँ, आई मैं बाद में बताऊंगा. Right now I'm not recommending anything, I'm just telling you these are the structures, right? We'll come back to what you should add or should not add later, right? That's not the point of this presentation.
Now, just
uh
one question, like
yep.
when you try to form a story in terms of case study, most of the times it happens like with my case study, it's like a lot of content is going in the case study, but people prefer to not read it, and in that
Yeah.
way they try to ignore the visuals that I put in, and the
Hmm.
content is also ignored. In that way, how we
Hmm.
can make sure that the content is very less, but we are trying to uh, engage the users to read that case study.
Okay, so you are telling me you have written probably a written you have used you have sent a written case study that you expect people to read and then
Yeah,
uh, right.
yeah.
So usually देखो, स्टोरी टेलिंग में चार पार्ट्स होते हैं. What I am presenting right now is a form of digital storytelling, right?
Mhm.
Where you are there to narrate, right, your story. But there is also called written. There is just visual storytelling, and there is video based storytelling,
Mhm.
right? Uh, to figure out what's working or not, right? What you can do at this point is जो भी मैंने अब तक बताया है, you can use this to write a case study, right? Send to a
Okay.
bunch of friends, right? Ask them where your interest stopped, मतलब जहाँ कहाँ पे आपका इंटरेस्ट खत्म
Mhm.
हो गया या फिर क्या आपको समझ में नहीं आया, right? And then
Yeah.
iterate. That's the only process. Like that's मतलब वही है, मैंने भी वही किया है. I'll show you what
Mhm.
how I built a story, and that is what
Okay.
I also do,
Okay.
right? So there is no other way, to
Yeah.
be honest.
Yeah.
राइट कूल है. तो नाउ लेट्स गेट इनटू हाउ कैन यू सिलेक्ट अ प्रोजेक्ट. ठीक है. तो मेरे हिसाब से दो स्केल्स होते हैं प्रोजेक्ट के. एक एक्स एक्सिस आपका कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी की तरफ जा रहा है, वाई एक्सिस आपका प्रोसेस ड्रिवन की तरफ से जा रहा है, राइट? तो a good sweet spot is if you have a complex enough product with some form of processes on it. Right. Now, I can't tell you what is complex or what is not, what is simple process or what is difficult process. This is according to you. ठीक है. आपको लगता है कि आपने कॉम्प्लेक्स प्रॉब्लम पे काम किया है, तो यू पुट दैट प्रॉब्लम ऑन दिस स्केल वेर एवर यू वांट, राइट? बट एंड the way I've designed this slide is if you have couple of projects, right? Then you decide which of your projects fits in what box. Okay, and then based on that choose whatever project you want to use to build a story on. The what I have find is ये जो sweet spot वाला area है ना, it's a very good place where you have some form of process and the problem is complex enough. Complexity में ना एक चीज मैं बताना चाहूंगा, what is not complex. If you have solved a simple problem for a very long time, that's not a complex problem. To give an example, uh, a couple of years back, I redesigned the कार्ड. जो आपका सर्च रिजल्ट्स का कार्ड होता है ना, वो मैंने
Yeah.
रीडिजाइन किया था, राइट? और उसमें मैंने बेसिकली क्या किया था, आई जस्ट रीडिजाइन द इंफॉर्मेशन आर्किटेक्चर, एज इन कौन सी इंफॉर्मेशन हायरार्की में कहाँ आनी चाहिए. ठीक है. कौन सी इंफॉर्मेशन बड़ी होनी चाहिए, कौन सी बड़ी होनी चाहिए, क्या हाईलाइटेड होना चाहिए. एंड इट टुक मी अराउंड 2-3 days टू redesign that whole card, right? Now because I spent 2-3 days in redesigning the card does not mean that that redesign of that card is a complex problem, right? And this is a kind of a trend that I've noticed in some people's case study, where because they have spent significant time in solving a relatively simple problem, right? They try to force processes on it कि देखो मैंने रिसर्च भी, मैंने 4 टाइप की रिसर्च करी, राइट? और मैंने ये प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर दी. द प्रॉब्लम इज सिंपल इनफ इन इटसेल्फ, राइट? इट्स नॉट अ कॉम्प्लेक्स प्रॉब्लम, right? So if you have spent more time in solving a relatively simple problem, that's not a complex problem. You have went deeper into it, right? But the problem is again simple, right? So आप डिसाइड करो आपका प्रोजेक्ट कहाँ पे होता है. अगर आपके पास एक ही प्रोजेक्ट है, ठीक है, तो दिस स्लाइड डज नॉट मैटर बिकॉज दैट्स व्हाट यू हैव एंड दैट्स व्हाट यू हैव टू डू विद, राइट? But if you can have a case study in sweet spot, rare or difficult but rewarding, right? These are the kind of case studies that usually at least uh, इन केस स्टडीज को एटलीस्ट एक चांस तो मिल जाता है इंटरव्यू का. ठीक है, फर्स्ट राउंड जो होता है आपका प्रेजेंटेशन राउंड में, वो चांस मिल जाता है, वरना मोस्ट ऑफ द केस स्टडीज यूजुअली फॉल इन दिस सॉरी सॉरी दिस अवॉइड जोन, राइट? अब द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज कि भाई मानव बता तो दिया आपने, है ना, इतना सब कुछ बता दिया, ये करना है वो करना, करना कैसे है, राइट? दैट इज द क्वेश्चन, राइट? तो when I started building storytelling, that was my question as well. And after some research, I found out that when you have to uh, मतलब We have identified some characters, we have some plots, right? But how do we know that we have the correct characters or the correct plots, right? What if we want to uncover everything जो भी हमने प्रोजेक्ट में काम किया, क्योंकि एक बार में याद नहीं रहता ना जब आप बना रहे होते हो. तो these are some of the questions that have helped me in at least collecting plots and characters, right? And if they have not directly helped, what they have allowed me is to think what happened during the time while I was doing the project, right? uh, and from that can I pull out any information जो मैंने ऐसे ignore करके रख दिया, right? Which I think is not relevant to my project, but then the way I'm thinking of making the story, it could be relevant, right? So these are the list of questions. You can take a screenshot, or we're gonna uh, I don't know if you're gonna share it, but you can take a screenshot, right? So these are like simple questions that can help you identify plots and characters of what all happened to your case study. And adding to that, they are also going to help you identify कि आप end में क्या करना चाहते हो, right? Like, do you want to end with a takeaway, right? Or do you want to show outcomes at the end? Do you want to ask some questions at the end? What all do you want to do at the end, right? Uh, in uh, narratives में what you essentially, sorry, so yeah, so yeah, when you're exploring a narrative on how are you gonna vocally tell a story, uh, there are multiple ways of assembling plot, right? So again, these are some of the methods. You can start from solutions, then go to what was the problem area, what was the specific solution, what exploration you did, and what was the impact, right? Then you can either start from impact, solution, ideation, and research, right? You can just show कि this was the problem statement and the problem area, these are the iterations, these are my solution, this was my impact, right? Or you can go from beyond, starting end से start कर सकते हो, impact, solution, और फिर problem क्या था, ठीक है? अब again, these are some common plot orders, but based on आपके पास क्या क्या plots हैं, क्या क्या characters हैं, राइट? आई आई वुड हाईली सजेस्ट कि आप एक्सप्लोर करें प्लॉट्स को ऑर्डर करने में, कि आपके हिसाब से सबसे क्या इंटरेस्टिंग बनता है. द वन थिंग दैट इज मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट अबाउट स्टोरी टेलिंग इज, इफ यू डोंट बिलीव इन योर स्टोरी, नो वन एल्स विल, राइट? सो फर्स्ट यू विल हैव टू बिलीव कि जो मैंने स्टोरी बनाई है ना, वो it is satisfying, right? I'm satisfied with the story I'm telling, right? Then only you can expect the other people, whoever you are presenting, to believe in what you are saying, right? Then these are some of the plots that you can these are some of the places you can start your story, right? Before after is a very classic case, right? You can go in the details of your solution. So if you have specifically, let's say, built a screen, you can maybe start from talking about all the details, all the complexities are there in designing that screen. Maybe you can start with the impact, you can also start with the conflict, right? That this was a problem statement, and as we started solving the problem, these were the two directions, right? I was with this direction, my PMO stakeholders were with this direction. That how this is a story of how we uh, came on to a common consensus and then delivered a solution. Uh, yeah. Uh, Another way you can start a story, or another way you can form a story, uh, is by talking about these things. Yeah, I think this is covered. Cool. So, very quickly, I'm going to tell you how recently I have started to build a story, and I'm also going to show you one of the case studies that is actually live right now, which I use to present uh, in my interviews. Right. So, the first thing that I do is, this is the tool that I use on my iPad. It's called Mockups. So it gives me a free space. The first thing that I do is, which I just told, that I write down every single thing that I can remember from that point of time. Right, all the journeys that we did, explored, all the personas that we built for, what were the main problems that we were solving, what were our goals, what were our metrics, right? All the things I just dump it on one screen. Uh, so this somehow gives me a kind of a rough whiteboard or a blackboard in this case, uh, just to dump everything that is there in my brain related to the project, right? And this is just random brain dumping. There is no structure here, right? It might seem like कि थोड़ा organized है, but बिल्कुल random है, right? The second thing I start to do is, based on जो भी मेरा brain dump है, uh, I start building 2 3 lines of how I want to then present it. Right? What are the things I want to add in the story? Right? और मैं Google Docs use करता हूँ इसके लिए. Right? So if you see on the left side, these are the various iterations of the story that I've done. Right? And I also use Chat GPT. तो Chat GPT में मैं जाके I give Chat GPT the context, and the kind of story or narrative I want to come. And I sometimes ask ChatGPT also, what do you think is the best narrative for this kind of story? And then ChatGPT kind of recommends me, this is a narrative you can explore, and also helps me rewrite my story in that narrative. Right. So, screen में what I've done is, first of all, I've created a page called context, जहाँ पे मैंने सब कुछ structure किया, जो भी context था मेरा. Then I create a storyline. Then I create outline only. So outline only for me is basically, now I'm thinking on a slide level, कि अगर मेरे को slide में बनाना है इसको, कि तो हर slide की outline क्या होगी, right? So this is how I finalize the story and the contents of a presentation, right? देन देन कम्स बिल्डिंग अ नैरेटिव, राइट? अब वो सब तो मैंने बना लिया, लेट्स से कि मैंने ब्रेन डंप कर दिया, कैरेक्टर्स आइडेंटिफाई कर लिए, एक स्ट्रक्चर बना लिया. नाउ व्हेन आई वांट टू टेस्ट द नैरेटिव, व्हाट आई डू इज, आई हैव अ पिक्सल. So on my pixel there is this recording tool. What this does is, whenever I record it, it kinds of transcript whatever I'm saying live, right? So if you don't have a pixel, or Samsung phone में भी ये functionality है. नहीं तो देर आर अ लॉट ऑफ एआई टूल्स जो आपकी रिकॉर्डिंग को वो कर दे, समराइज कर देते हैं. व्हाट आई डू इज, मैं ऐसे नैरेटिव को बोलता रहता हूँ, राइट? एंड दिस इज नॉन स्टॉप. आई डोंट टेक अ ब्रेक. तो अगर मैं बोलते बोलते, इफ आई मैं किसी दूसरे टैंजेंट पे चला जाता हूँ, आई लेट इट गो. इट्स अ फ्री फ्लोइंग नरेशन ऑफ व्हाट आई वांट टू प्रेजेंट. And after that, one again functionality here is, I can export this transcript to Google Drive, right? तो मैं इसको Google Drive पे export कर देता हूँ, Google Drive पे आता हूँ, and then I read it, and then I kind of delete whatever is not wanted, keep whatever I feel is necessary for the narrative, right? And then I re-record it, right? Just to see if that narrative is going with the voice and tone, right? So this is my process. It starts with brain dump, then creating structure, right? And then figuring out a narrative. Now, once this happens, then only I start. Then only I go and build slide decks, right? And then here also multiple iterations happen. So my process is first build, right? Present, take feedback, and then update it, right? If you see, a lot of the presentation screens are hidden, right? Essentially that means is, मेरे पास आइडिया था कि ये स्क्रीन होनी चाहिए, मैंने ये बनाई, पर प्रेजेंट की उसके बाद मुझे लगा कि ये नहीं होनी चाहिए, राइट? तो मैंने इसको हाइड कर दिया. और उसके बाद द वाइट पार्ट्स आर द पार्ट्स दैट आई प्रेजेंट usually. And my way of doing this is, I built a story. I reach out to my friends. मैं उनको बोलता हूँ, यार प्लीज आधे घंटे के लिए मेरे साथ कॉल पे आ जाए, आई वांट टू प्रेजेंट टू यू माय वर्क, राइट? और fairly recently what I've done is, I've booked sessions on ADP list, right? Topmate नहीं किया, but that's a platform you can use. But I've booked sessions on ADP list exclusively, uh, because those people don't know my work at all, and they are the most closest uh, setting to an interview, right? So I present my work, I record whatever they are saying, I note down in comments जैसे यहाँ पे लिख रखे हैं, and then I come back, you know, redo my presentation, then present again, and that's how I figure out the correct storytelling and narrative, right? uh, some questions that I mostly ask during the feedback sessions is, One is, did my storytelling effectively communicate the project's context, problem statement, and impact? You can take a screenshot of these questions uh, if you want. But these are the three questions that I mostly ask every time I'm presenting my work. It's irrespective of if I'm in an interview or if I'm presenting to anyone else, right? Uh, any answer that I get helps me improve my work, right? So if you see, this was the version 1 of the project that I showed you, right? I built these slides, took comments on wherever people gave me some comments, right? uh, Hid most of the slides because they I did not find them relevant, and I found them that they were making the time long, right? And I wanted the presentation to be in certain time, right? उसके बाद as I got my feedback, you see the number of presentations कम हो गई हैं, and feedback ज्यादा हो गया है, but चीजें जो मैंने हाइड करी हैं वो कम हो गई हैं, right? I'm starting to getting a feel of, okay, what is working for me, what is not working for me, right? And then lastly, uh, uh, this is another iteration where I tried some different narrative. Uh, it did work for me, right? And then based on this, I felt this was a better narrative than this previous narrative, right? So I skipped that. मैंने उसको ignore किया. Uh, I started presenting with this narrative, and then once I felt a strong confidence, उसको कम करके मैंने this is the final slide that I like present to everyone, which is very crisp. I think these are just 20-30 slides, so my presentation kind of finishes in some 20-30 minutes. Uh, it gets to 40 if there is a lot of question and answer. So uh, this is how you can build narratives for your story. Now, if you have any questions, you can ask me all the questions, right? I'm open. If you need any specific help in building your narratives, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm also available on ADP list if you feel comfortable that way. So I'll be happy to help you.
Um, Manav, one question, like how long do you take to create all these structure from brain to this final iteration? How long does it takes?
Yeah, मेरे case study में my work was very complex. So I built a trading tool. So there were a lot of complexities that I wanted to show. मेरे को इस प्रोजेक्ट में लगभग 2.5 महीना लग गया था.
Uh,
Two and a
present
half
runner.
months, 2.5 minutes to reach months to reach here
Okay, from brain dump.
from brain dump. Yeah,
Oh,
2.5
nice.
months and roughly 3-4 घंटे हर दिन
Regularly.
regularly, right?
Mm.
And the reason for that is because I'm not just uh, execution takes less time than thinking of what to execute,
Right.
right? So thinking of, okay, should I combine these slides into one, and if I have to
Mm.
combine 4 slides into one, then how do I do that? Right?
Mm.
Do I use a visual? Do I use a prototype? Do I write more? Do I speak more? Right?
Mm.
All these things, figuring out all these things takes more time.
Okay.
Hey Manav,
Yeah.
um, like you said, you had a lot of slides in your project.
Hmm.
So, what do you think is a better approach after taking interviews on ADP or with your friends?
Hmm.
Should adding more slides be a better approach or removing slides be a better approach?
दोबारा
Considering that
क्वेश्चन
it's
पूछना, सॉरी,
so
क्वेश्चन समझ नहीं आया मुझे तुम्हारा.
नहीं जैसे अभी अगर आप स्लाइड्स ऐड कर रहे हो
Hmm.
तो किसी के फीडबैक पे स्लाइड ऐड करने में यू नो व्हाई यू आर एडिंग दैट स्लाइड
Hmm.
बट रिमूव करने में यू हैव आल्सो वेस्टेड दैट टाइम इन मेकिंग दैट स्लाइड and you
Hmm.
have almost removed like 60% of your slides.
हाँ हाँ.
So what do you think is a better approach, like adding slides later after the interview or removing them?
I don't think either is a better approach. It depends upon कि आपको feedback जो मिला है वो कितना valid है, right? Don't think this that you have spent time and then you're removing things. Think of it like a design exploration, right? You did a design exploration, right? You showed it to users, it did not work, right? Would you keep that or would you discard that,
Makes sense.
right? This is the way it is. You thought this is gonna work, right? Based on
Right.
your intuition, you presented it, you got a feedback, or you felt ki these things are unnecessary, right? Maybe I could combine them in some other form, in some other slide, right?
Right.
So think of it that way. एक
Also, another
question.
connected question.
Sure, go on.
So, like, till what limit do you prefer convincing the other party that your solution might work? Because you don't want to seem a little arrogant about your idea that this is the rightest solution which I have proposed. So, where do you draw that line that I need to stop and take their feedback?
uh okay, for case study, so this is in during an interview or this is while I'm testing my story with my friends or people from ADP list.
When you're interviewing on ADP list, when your seniors are like giving you
हाँ.
suggestions.
अच्छा. See, I don't, मैं किसी भी फीडबैक को आउटराइट में रिजेक्ट नहीं करता हूँ. इफ दे आर सेइंग समथिंग, it's because they might have felt something there, right? So I record every feedback in form of comments, right? Then I sit introspect on what they have said. If I have some clarifying question, I ask them कि ये मतलब था क्या आपका. uh, Else, if I feel that feedback is relevant for the narrative I want to drive, then it's okay. Otherwise, I don't. So to give you an example, uh, I did not change my narrative from one to other based on feedback. I changed my narrative because I felt the new narrative that I've uh, built, right, is much better, cleaner, leaner way of telling the same story that I was saying before,
Makes sense. Yeah. Thanks.
right? There are two questions. Uh, One is by Rishabh. It's if you're creating an app from scratch, should we use usability test, negative reviews as the dip of the story, or there's something else that you can app as the low point of the story? I mean, it's a great way of showing usability test, negative usability test, because see, the thing is, uh, again, I don't want to get into a argument of negative चीज इंटरव्यू में दिखानी चाहिए नहीं दिखानी चाहिए, right? But if in your case you created something and आपका यूजेबिलिटी टेस्ट नेगेटिव आए एंड देन उसको लेके आपने कुछ इंप्रूवमेंट किया अपनी स्टोरी में, राइट? या फिर स्टोरी आगे मूव करी, मतलब उस इवेंट के बाद आगे कुछ मूवमेंट हुई आपके प्रोजेक्ट में, देन यू शुड यूज दैट सेइंग कि अरे हमने, मतलब यू कैन बिल्ड अप टू द पॉइंट कि हमने डिजाइन बना के यूजर टेस्टिंग करी एंड देन इट फेल्ड टेरिबली, right? It could be the classic Cinderella story, right? Where you built something, right? And then एकदम से फॉल आ गया, right? And then फिर फॉल के बाद भी राइज आना चाहिए, राइजिंग एक्शन आ जाएगा तो बेटर रहेगा, right? And there is again, this is not a correct way, ठीक है? This is my way, right? Your way can be different. Can you see your portfolio? हाँ यार, मैं भेज देता हूँ लिंक आपको, you can look at it. uh, uh, I have added it in my, ये रहा लिंक है मेरा. So this has all the case studies that I show. तो देख लेना. If you have any feedback, do also give that feedback to me. I have one more questions by Bhagyashri. While making a portfolio as a beginner in the industry, shall we focus to make a industry specific portfolio or generalized one? Uh, I don't understand this question. एक बार भाग्यश्री, if you can clarify this question तो बढ़िया रहेगा. Sheetal. Hey Manav, lots of time we do not have any impact because either the project is not live. Uh, Considering that the project was challenging, how can we showcase the data on our deck then? हाँ, तो इस case में again, because you don't have any data, I would say you remove that from the story all along, right? Rather than focusing on impact, focus on how you actually build that product, right? तो अगर again आइडेंटिफाइंग प्लॉट्स, अगर आपके केस में एक इम्पैक्ट वाला प्लॉट है ही नहीं, राइट? तो हाउ डू यू टेल अ स्टोरी, राइट? जो आपकी डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज होती हैं, राइट? इन डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज, मोस्ट डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज आर इंफॉर्मेशनल, दे डोंट हैव एन इम्पैक्ट, राइट? हाउ डू दे ड्राइव अ स्टोरी? दे जस्ट एक्सप्लोर वेरियस अदर प्लॉट्स, राइट? तो एक कैरेक्टर को ज्यादा दिखा देते हैं, राइट? और एक टॉपिक, स्पेसिफिक टॉपिक को डिटेल में जाते हैं। आपके केस में आप क्या कर सकते हो, बिकॉज यू हैव लैक ऑफ impact to show, maybe you can go in the details of your solution, right? So these are the details of my solution, this is how I think it would work, right? If this was to go live, right, my bet would be that it would create this much impact. Right? uh, can you describe how bad to worst structures would play out in real world scenario with an employer? uh, at this moment, no. Right now, but maybe you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Maybe we can discuss this on how can this happen. It's an interesting question though. I can understand ki why you would ask this question. And from a point of an interview, you can think कि ये negative रहेगा कि आपने कुछ काम किया और वो positive नहीं रहा, right? Uh, but I have I have heard some people say that we never see uh, we always see success stories in a portfolio, right? We rarely see a story where people said, hey, it was like it we could not make it, right? So rather than thinking of this as a negative point, maybe you can think कि अगर आप ये case study दिखाओगे तो your case study is different from everyone else. Everyone else is saying मैं बहुत ही फार डिजाइनर हूँ, right? You are saying यार मैंने ट्राई किया, मुझसे हो नहीं पाया, ठीक है? मैंने बहुत कोशिश की, बहुत ट्राई किया, मुझसे नहीं हो पाया, मेरी टीम से ही नहीं हो पाया, राइट? बट अगली बार अगर ऐसी कोई प्रॉब्लम आती है तो मैं इसको इस तरीके से हेल्प करूंगी, बिकॉज दिस इज व्हाट आई लर्न फ्रॉम सॉल्विंग दिस प्रॉब्लम और नॉट बीइंग एबल टू सॉल्व दिस प्रॉब्लम, राइट? This is how you can maybe stand out your portfolio. Again, it's a very risky game, right? And if you are a beginner, I would suggest you test this story a lot of times before you actually make this case study as your make this case study as your first case study that someone wants to see, or if you want this to be used as a for an interview, right? It will
Maybe
depend.
this can be the plot that I'm going to tell you a story where I failed, and
Yeah.
you guys might judge me right now, but I
uh,
will tell you why. And then
yeah.
you tell them that you tried once, then you tried again, then you
Yeah.
tried again, then you will think that I've let it go. But no,
Yeah.
I tried again, then again, then again, and then I decided that I think this is not the worth the time, so I have to let it go. Next time, if I'll get something, I'll do it much better.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, वो आपको डिसाइड करना है कि क्या बनेगा. So
Ah.
see, when you tell a story, outcome is rarely the thing people are looking for. It's what they're looking for is how you feel. That's what I also told in my presentation. Emotion is the last thing, right?
Mm.
So if you can make them feel sympathetic for you, right? Right. And at the end they're like, okay, this person tried, right? They did not give up, right? Or they tried multiple ways, but within their resources, this was the enough attempts that they could get, right?
Mm.
uh, that also tells the story that okay, you explored. See, because as designers आपने काम तो किया ही होगा ना, आपने ऐसा तो नहीं किया होगा ना कि आपने डिजाइन बनाया एंड देन यू आर लाइक कि आपने कुछ किया ही नहीं, आपने सोचा कि ये डिजाइन बनाएंगे एंड देन यू आर लाइक अरे होनी,
Mm.
राइट? सो so yeah, uh, again, I mean, if you guys want me to take a session on actually building a story of a portfolio, uh, just reach out to these guys, people who build. Reach out to Khyati, ask them to have one more session on this, and I can plan an interactive session uh, on how can we build a story. We'll take a problem and then we'll build a story on that.
Manas, I think that will be a great session because
Yeah,
the steps you told, there are a lot of steps, and
yeah,
a lot of details are required to in each step.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
a session will that like that will be
Mm,
great.
yeah.
Can do it.
ठीक है, करते हैं. I'll think of something. ठीक है.
Hmm.
I'll think of how can you do it. The one thing that I did not clearly communicate was every story is different. So you
Hmm.
have to use your strengths and your perspective to tell a story. Because if again सब कुछ general अगर सब एक pattern follow करने लग जाएंगे, then it will also become the same thing,
Hmm.
right? So
Everyone who wants to have that session, please say yes in the chat. Because हम 4 लोगों के लिए करने का कोई मतलब नहीं है ना.
yeah.
Okay, I can see it's a lot of yes. We can definitely do.
Yes, yes.
ठीक है. Cool है guys. I would seriously मैंने I've shared my portfolio link here. You can go see my case studies. If you have any feedback from me, do reach out to me. Right? If you have any questions for me, do reach out to me. If you want any help with your case study, then do reach out. But only reach out if you have a case study. I will not help in helping you build a case study. Right?
Definitely.
Cool. Also, give your honest feedback on how you like this session. I will go out. You guys can tell Swati and Raghavendra how you like this session. Uh, be brutal, be honest. Don't sugarcoat anything. Right?
Manav, there are some questions left in the chat, I think, from Prateek.
From Pratik, what's okay? So basically, if we make ourselves seem really passionate about something, the outcome is the last thing someone will see.
Hmm.
Yeah, it could be if you want, if you are driving that story in that narrative where you are the character, right? Where it's you who's the centerpiece of the story, right?
Yes.
Definitely.
So that's it.
I think yes. Does anyone have any more question or something that anyone wants to ask or have any suggestion or something?
Yeah. I
Manav, this
hope.
is
I
Mahesh
hope.
Keval.
Yeah.
Am I audible to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so just
Yes.
wanted to know, like, when you're taking a feedback, your users are from the different domain, right? Like,
Yeah.
one is from healthcare, one is from like anywhere you can expect. Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
how you
Yeah.
feedback and incorporate in your storytelling? I just wanted to know because like mixed reviews, makes a confusion a lot.
Hmm. Okay. No, it's a good question. तो देखो फीडबैक तो लेना ही चाहिए सबका बिकॉज यू नेवर नो who's viewing your portfolio, right? You know your industry better than the next person, right? So sometimes what happens is the type of questions they ask or the kind of feedback that gives you, it's very disjointed from what you are thinking. मतलब आपने सोचा ही नहीं होता उस बारे में, right?
Yeah.
Again, answer is a very simple answer is if you feel their feedback can significantly improve your case study, right? Either by adding or reducing something, right? You take that feedback. If you think it's going to give an incremental upgrade, right, which is not beneficial for you to put in that effort, right, then you can keep it as a, but it's a valid feedback. You can keep it at the side once you have a good structure of your case study. If you are happy with it, then you can think कि अच्छा अब इसको कैसे incorporate
Okay. Okay. Got it. Thank
करें,
you.
right? Okay. I mean, I can tell you till today, like 2 days back, I presented my work, right? I got my feedback from someone, and it's a kind of feedback that I don't expect. Like, no one has given that feedback to me. So now I'm gonna go back and improve that
Yeah,
in
because
my
the
case study.
one thing happened with me, like when I was sharing, like in my portfolio, it was a case study based on the food service, and
Hmm.
the company which I got and had an interview was a tech company. So it was like
Hmm.
difficult for me to explain them the food service case study as they were from the tech domain.
Yeah. And that is where a good story would come, right? Because you really have to understand. Anyone can be your interviewer. They don't have to be from your domain. और उल्टा
Yeah,
अगर if they are from your domain, they are gonna even grill you,
yeah, I got
right?
it.
Right?
Thank you.
Cool then.
Cool then, but before क्या कहते हैं ending session, we have one ritual कि everyone has to turn on their camera for 2
cameras,
seconds for a end
screenshot
snap.
कर लो यार
Please,
please, please.
everyone, please turn on your camera for 5 seconds. राघव भी like मैं light setting करके आता हूँ.
अरे अजय भी है यहाँ पे. अरे क्या हाल है bro? So Ajay used to work with me in my last company. Now he's heading design there.
Guys, जल्दी जल्दी.
I think और कोई on नहीं करेगा.
I think now we can play.
Yeah. चलो, let's do it. Nice, good session. ये करना जरूरी है क्या ऐसे?
यप, वरना ख्याति अगली बार एंट्री नहीं देती है, इसलिए वो निकाल रखा है.
चलो ठीक है, मैं अभी ले ही लेता हूँ फोटो यार.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you guys. Bye bye.
Thanks everyone for joining. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
क्या थे, हम वेट करते हैं, ठीक है, एक सेकंड.
Sure, works. अगर किसी का क्वेश्चन है तो they can also wait if they want to ask something.
Related to the topic, not every otherwise.
Got it. Yash, Akshay, are the guys there? Okay, let me